It's the Real Estate Podcast, brought to you by ANZ Home Loans for financial well-beings.
And welcome to another episode of the Real Estate Podcast, available on iHeartRadio every morning and also on Spotify and Apple and wherever you get your podcast from. It is a Friday morning, back into almost a weekend. How's the daylight saving sleeping going? I did say that by the time we got to Friday morning, that should be alleviated somewhat. It is the 7th day of October for 2022, and coming up we're talking northern beaches in Sydney with Matt and Monique. We're going to be having a look at exclusive areas like Palm Beach, Narrabeen and Manly Beach. What is happening with those prices, and can you find property in those locations for a reasonable price? We'll find out very shortly. Oh yeah, and you might have seen this reported yesterday, and my initial take on this was, why not? A residential development is offering a twist for potential buyers to reduce their carbon footprint by providing communal Teslas. And this is all happening in a $500 million development in St Leonards on Sydney's North Shore. Now, the trick here is that Teslas are going to be parked and waiting on site for owners of apartment to be able to book and open the cars using an app. So the whole marketing around this campaign is to say, hey, long-term residents won't even need to own a car. The Teslas will be provided through the Residents Body Corp fees, with a usage fee of that $20 per hour through the app.
We talk with leading property commentators with analysis, predictions, forecasts and what's trending every morning from 6:30.
Hey, if you're celebrating your birthday today for the 7th of October, wow, look who is having his birthday. This is the reason why I feel sorry that it is your birthday falling on the same day as Vladimir Putin. Putin is turning 69 today. Who cares? But anyway, I thought that I'd mention that. Simon Cowell is also on the birthday calls. He's turning 62. And Johnny Cougar Mellencamp, the singer, he is turning the big 70 today.
It's your Real Estate Podcast for breakfast. It's the Main Centre Forecast with PRD, selling smarter every day.
Let's head around Australia on this Friday morning and have a look at your weather. And good morning if you are in Sydney, expecting showers to increase today and a high of 22 degrees. In Melbourne, expecting the rain and 21. Brisbane, partly cloudy, should be mainly dry with 24 degrees. And in Perth today, it's going to be blue skies with sunshine, and 21 is your forecast high.
It's your weekday real estate breakfast with news, interviews and predictions every morning on the Real Estate Podcast.
And what we are going to do this morning is take a look at the beautiful northern beaches in Sydney, which reached dizzying heights over the past 2+ years, with prices rising 38.5% over the COVID period. Now, that is pretty good if you are in the area that boasts exclusive areas like Palm Beach Enclave or the Surf Break at Narrabeen, and of course world famous Manly Beach. So to help explain this to you, I am joined this morning by Matt Corbett, Principal, and Monique Treder, Buyers Advocate from propertybuyer.com.au. And a very good morning to you, Matt.
Morning, Craig. Thanks for having me back.
And hello there, Monique. How are you?
Yeah, well, thanks, Craig. Thanks for having us.
All right, well, let's start with you, Matt. We know that the prices went crazy, as I mentioned, during COVID. Perhaps highlight for our audience why they went so high on the northern beaches.
Yeah, Craig, look, the impact of COVID was huge. During this time, many people were forced into a change of employment, new business opportunities opened up, and some people just sought a change in lifestyle. A lot of people saw themselves working from home forever, and the idea of a beach walk during a lunch break was particularly appealing. We had a very strong influx of buyers from the North Shore and eastern suburbs in particular, with many people realising that they could get far greater value for their money by buying in a market that has traditionally lagged behind the one that they had come from. In some way, these out-of-area buyers re-educated the locals on the property value. Competition was fierce. As you mentioned, a 38.5% increase in prices, and that was just really in 2021. The good news for buyers, though, is that the prices have certainly settled in the last 6 months, and in some suburbs they've retracted up to 15% as we now approach a fairly normalised market.
So, Monique, let's look at the different types of property that somebody can buy for, let's say, around that $1.2 million mark, and maybe a little bit more expensive up to that $2.5 million.
So 1.2 can now buy you a 2-bedroom apartment in most suburbs on the beaches. Suburbs like Fairlight, Balgowlah, Queenscliff and Freshwater. You do probably need to do a little bit of work to one of those properties in those suburbs. Generally speaking, you get a bit more value for money as you head further north to suburbs like Collaroy, Narrabeen and Mona Vale. Alternatively, you can buy a 1-bedroom apartment in Manly. Manly has held its value really well. This was definitely not the case last year. There's some really good buying in this price range because people are starting to offload investment properties in this price bracket. The 2.5 million can now buy a livable 3 to 4 bedroom home in parts of Frenchs Forest, Beacon Hill, Allambie, Cromer, Wheeler and Elanora Heights and Warriewood. Last year, this was a really tough price range to buy in, but there are a lot more options available now in this price range.
Yeah, so that's pretty interesting, Monique. And Matt, a suburb's demographic profile is always good due diligence to do, no matter what suburb you're looking at. So what about the beaches suburbs regarding that and the lifestyle factor?
Yeah, Craig, look, the Northern Beaches is primarily a place for young families, but also we have a significant number of retirees who equally love the lifestyle. There are just so many activities to do and something for everyone. We have some of the finest beaches in the country, including the world-renowned Manly Beach and a coastline stretching up to north to Palm Beach with a multitude of surf clubs in between. If you like boating or any still water activities, Pittwater is a fabulous waterway which is home to some of Australia's finest sailors. There are very few places I know where you can go for an early morning swim or surf and then go hiking in a national park and all before lunchtime. So, there's fabulous cycling routes to areas like West Head, multiple mountain biking tracks at Terry Hills and Narrabeen, just to name a couple. Northern Beaches is also home to one of Sydney's most successful athletics clubs and some of the finest golf courses, including Monash and Elanora, Terry Hills. But it's not all about leisure. The beaches is serviced by express buses and ferries into the city. It includes the major shopping hub of Warringah Mall. It also has some excellent cafes and restaurants. But above all, the Northern Beaches is just a fantastic place to raise a family in a very safe environment.
And Monique, we know that good schools are a pretty important driver for demand. So perhaps talk about that and where the best schools are located.
Yeah, Craig, schools are a feature of demand for buyers. There are many great schools throughout the Northern Beaches and a good mix of public and private schools. People are often driven to suburbs such as Killarney Heights for their bilingual offering, or Balgowlah Boys for their academic results, Mackellar Girls for their music programs. There are also some great specialty schools on the Northern Beaches in Terry Hills, being the German and Japanese school that are highly sought after by international buyers. The demographic of the area has really changed and the level of schooling of the local primary school has met this demand, giving a great community feel and quality schooling in the primary years. There are lots of high-level private and independent schools on the beaches, such as St Augustine's for boys, Stella Maris for girls, and co-ed options of Oxford Falls Grammar, Pittwater House and St Luke's and Manly Selective. So really, people living locally have many choices when it comes to schooling and can choose an area that reflects their quality of life and access to schools for their family.
Okay, and Matt, let's talk about suburbs that are hotly contested to gain entry into. So where are those premium areas?
Craig, there's a number of tightly held areas in the beaches, depending on the type of property you're buying, and mostly because the council is particularly strict on new development or extended development, and it's also a very narrow geographical area. Areas that come to mind would be Manly's Eastern Hill, including some of the most prestigious homes and apartments in Bower Street. The Collaroy and Mona Vale Basin, including some oceanfront properties, very tightly held, and obviously Palm Beach as well. You've also got the exclusive acreages in Terry Hills and Duffy's Forest that are home to some magnificent estates. And all said, however, Craig, I would have to say that the most tightly held properties in the Northern Beaches would be, there's a specific stretch of houses along Pittwater Road in Bayview, where there's some magnificent north-facing deep waterfronts. The demand for this strip is consistently high and they rarely come up for sale. And when they do, they are extremely highly contested.
Yes, okay, that's interesting, Matt. And let's come to you now, Monique, because the flip side of those premium areas, we want to have a look at the more affordable suburbs and where they're located.
Absolutely. So there's still affordable suburbs on the Northern Beaches. Some of the suburbs that offer great value are suburbs such as Elanora Heights, Cromer, Newport, Wheeler Heights and Manly Vale. So you get all the benefits of living on the Northern Beaches at a slightly more affordable price range. Additionally, you could venture a little further west to Belrose and Davidson, which have rejuvenated as young family areas and are less than 10 minutes drive to the beach.
Okay, and maybe finally, Monique, if you've got a story about a recent client, I'd love to hear it, why they came to you. Do you have one?
I do, Craig. So Matt and I bought for a family recently. They're an international family and they just were unsure about the Sydney market, how the real estate industry worked, and they were feeling really uncertain and very cautious. So they came to us so that we could give some thorough due diligence and make them feel really confident with their buying.
And that's one of the good things, is that you guys do such great due diligence. So what did you end up buying for them?
They had a really specific brief. They wanted to be zoned for a certain school. They really liked the Northern Beaches lifestyle, but they had their eye on a school. The suburb that they were looking at was outside their budget to start. So we held strong and we watched that market really closely. And when the market in that area started to drop, we contacted them and said, okay, now there's an opportunity. We searched both kind of on and off market. We found them a property that they liked. And then Matt came in. Matt is a pretty tough negotiator. Matt came in, negotiated a property for them. They were absolutely over the moon. So it was a property that they would not have normally been able to buy because it would have been outside their budget. But yes, they were very, very happy to get the outcome of the house that they wanted in the suburb that they wanted.
All right, that's a fantastic way to leave it on this Friday morning. Thank you, Monique, for coming on to the Real Estate Podcast.
Thanks so much, Craig, for having us both.
And thank you, Matt, for coming back onto the Real Estate Podcast.
Oh, thanks for having us, Craig. Always a pleasure.
We connect you to the best real estate information across Australia. The Real Estate Podcast.